May I start by expressing appreciation to the distinguished resource person for having accepted our invitation to participate in the meeting. I believe this meeting's event will be an excellent opportunity to continue our lively discussions from yesterday and to learn more from civil society in Latin America and the Caribbean on the important topics we will cover today. Allow me to make a statement in my capacity as chairman of the committee. Dear colleagues and friends, today's meeting is taking place in the context of two important events: the unprecedented renewed round of peace negotiations and the proclamation by the United Nations General Assembly of the year 2014 as the International Year of Solidarity with the Palestinian people. The role of the international civil society in the success of both of these undertakings is indispensable. We have just concluded 2 days of informative, open discussion on the current situation in the Middle East peace process and on the role of governments, intergovernmental organizations, and civil society in advancing a just and permanent solution to the conflict. We have learned about the focused work conducted by the scholars of the Center for International Development and Conflict Management at the University of Maryland with Arab and Jewish communities in Latin America and the Caribbean about the educational initiatives spearheaded by the Institute for Arab Culture of the University of Sao Paulo and by Argentine Consensus for Palestinian-Israeli Peace. In recent weeks, we have also witnessed incredible effort of women activists from Europe and the US who attempt to reach Gaza on the International Women's Day in solidarity with the people of Gaza. We saw American scholars Judith Butler and Rashid Khalidi online petition objecting to censorship and intimidation in academic and cultural institutions received over 150 distinguished academic and cultural signatories. On our part, the Bureau of the Committee earlier this month called on the Security Council to act without delay to address Israeli policies towards East Jerusalem, in particular the increasing Israeli incursions on the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound, as well as the Israeli Knesset considering a bill to impose Israeli sovereignty over Al-Haram al-Sharif. In late 2013, in response to your valuable feedback, we have launched a website, UN Platform for Palestine, which now comprises information on over 1,200 civil society organizations working on the question of Palestine worldwide. 1,200 partners with whom we can connect, share, plan, and implement joint initiatives. So I would like to take a moment to commend all of you on your dedication, resourcefulness, and tireless work in providing assistance and technical support on the ground and in mobilizing public opinion and influencing decision makers on the question of Palestine regionally and internationally. The voice of civil society organization is fundamental to advocacy and advancement of the Palestinian cause in all of its aspects. For our joint productive work during the International Year of Solidarity with the Palestinian people, we encourage the civil society organization to establish International Year steering committees at the national and regional levels. International, regional, and local umbrella organizations should take the lead in mobilizing the public for specific events. A toolkit developed by the Division for Palestinian Rights will facilitate civil society campaigns. The web-based UN platform for Palestine will serve as a mobilization and coordination tool in this regard. For that reason, we wanted to dedicate our today's meeting to the discussion on the ways to bring the international and regional civil society organizations together to advance Israeli-Palestinian peace, reaching decision makers and politicians, on the educational role of the academic institutions and think tanks, and on the role of communities in the region, including Arab and Jewish. I now have the pleasure to give the chair to His Excellency Mr. Siddhartha Marin, Ambassador of Nicaragua to Ecuador, who joined the committee delegation on behalf of Ambassador Maria Rubiales de Chamorro, permanent representative of Nicaragua to the United Nations, and one of the vice chair of the committee, who was unable to travel to Quito. Ambassador Marin has kindly agreed to chair this meeting. Nicaragua is a very active and reliable member of our committee, especially since it became part of the enlarged bureau of the committee as vice chair last year. So we are very pleased that you, Mr. Ambassador, were able to join us here in Quito on behalf of Ambassador de Chamorro. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's certainly an honor for Nicaragua and for myself. Buenos días. Estimados amigos de la sociedad civil, excelencias, señoras y señores, es para mí un placer presidir la reunión de las Naciones Unidas de la sociedad civil en apoyo de la paz israelo-palestina, en nombre de nuestra embajadora ante las Naciones Unidas, quien había previsto sede le dio instrucciones de que se ocupara de algunos asuntos urgentes en las Naciones Unidas en Nueva York. Nicaragua apoya decididamente la causa palestina. En nuestro país existen muchos movimientos de la sociedad civil en apoyo del pueblo palestino. Y tenemos una pequeña comunidad palestina en el país, así como una judía, por lo que me interesan especialmente las deliberaciones acerca de la función de las diásporas para impulsar la paz entre Israel y Palestina. El presidente Diallo ya ha explicado el programa de cooperación del Comité con la sociedad civil.
Chairman Diallo has already explained the cooperation program between the committee and civil society. So without further delay, I'd like to introduce to you the first specialist who will be speaking. Mr. Pedro Ferraracio Charbel is a member and founding member of the Palestinian Front and the Front in Defense of the Palestinian people. He is also a founding member of the Brazilian affiliate of the Educational Network for Human Rights in Palestine and Israel. He was a volunteer in the ecumenical program to support the Palestinian-Israeli process. Sir, thank you for being here, and you have the floor.
He spoke English yesterday.
Muchas gracias. Una vez más, I would like to thank the invitation to be here. I'm very happy with the presentation that our ambassador from Senegal in his chair position has given. His mention to Judith Butler, who is a great scholar and figure and an active supporter of the campaign I'm willing to present you today, the Boycott, Divestment and Sanctions campaign. So I'm happy with this mention to Judith Butler. I'm also happy with this committee agreeing on the importance of having civil society and how fundamental is that. And again, I might say that I'm here representing a couple of organizations, and then we have another organization, and maybe for our next meeting it would be nice to have more civil society organizations talking on this table. I would like to quick refer to the organization I former volunteered, the Ecumenical Component Program for Palestine-Israel. They are here represented, which is another kind of initiative that civil society has, sending international volunteers to live in the occupied territories, including East Jerusalem, for 3 months, working as human rights observers and giving protective presence to villages and people that without our presence there, maybe they wouldn't be there due to all the aggression and violence perpetrated by the Israeli military. I would like to start my presentation by talking a little bit about the role of youth in civil society. I'm very young. I was born around Oslo. And I'm happy to be here representing somehow this youth, because I'm happy to say that Mr. David Bergugnon was wrong when he said that the old would die and the young would forget. Either the Palestinians have forgotten, either we, international youth, have forgotten, and we are here in solidarity with the Palestinian people. So I'm very happy that the youth can be part of this. Yesterday, Mr. Mansour said, you have on your shoulders this responsibility. You have no choice but to discuss the boycott, divestment and sanctions movement. Our dear friend from Brazil, unfortunately not in his official position, has also stated that we must change the structure of incentives by concrete means. The American jurists made a question: what about civil society initiatives within a geopolitical framework? Professor Aline Clemesha also stated how vital it is to have a concrete action of boycott to materialize the international solidarity. I'm happy the discussions from yesterday come to this point where people were demanding answers and concrete steps to all we have been talking about in these last days. I believe there is also a consensus that initiatives of harmony among diasporas around the world will not lead us to a solution, at least not by themselves. And Mr. Arkadoun agreed with that yesterday when he stated, I know that what we do will not solve the problem, so let's talk about concrete measures that maybe, I believe strongly, will solve the problem. Of course, initiatives of harmony among diasporas can be and are a valid effort of deep individual, spiritual, identitary changing, but they are not providing us structural changes in the geopolitical framework in Israel-Palestine. So what can civil society do to change in practical terms the paradigm of impunity that we have today? How can we change the set of incentives so that Israel will fulfill its obligations with international law? Well, I have the difficult task to present in a few minutes what is today the largest movement of civil society, peaceful movement, for the defense of international law and for the inalienable rights of the Palestinian people. It's the biggest movement in the world, and it's called Boycott, Divestment and Sanctions Movement. Of course, that's not the only way to resist or to fight for international law. Palestinians have been fighting daily by existing. In Palestine, exist is to resist. The simple fact that Palestinians are still there is a resistance. But for us, international community, to keep our silence is not enough. And what we can do is to answer for a call that came from the largest number of NGOs, civil societies, political parties, intellectuals you can imagine. I have a huge list here. If you want, I can name them, and maybe it will take 10 minutes just to name all of them, from Palestine and from Israel and from around the world. As I mentioned, Judith Butler, for example. So us as internationals should answer this call. And I'm going to give you 2 reasons for us to answer this call. The first reason is international law. As you all know, 2014 is the International Year in Solidarity with the Palestinian people, but it is also the year of the 10th anniversary of the advisory opinion of the International Court of Justice, which found Israel's wall on occupied Palestinian territory to be legal. But the ICJ piece also states, and now allow me to quote, and that will be, I promise, the only juridic thing I'm going to read. I tend to read a lot of juridic stuff, so I will make an effort to keep all at this. As regards the legal consequences for other states, so we are talking about other states, not Israel, okay? The court states, the court finds that all states are under an obligation not to recognize the legal situation resulting from the construction of the wall and not to render aid or assistance in maintaining the situation created by such construction. And it goes forward. Besides the wall question, I quote, in addition, all states parts of the 4th Geneva Convention are under an obligation, while respecting the Charter and international law, to ensure compliance by Israel with international humanitarian law as embodied in that convention. So for those representing here your countries, if your countries are, if they have signed the Geneva Convention, they are not only obliged to ensure compliance by Israel of all its international humanitarian law violations, not only the wall, it's written here, but also, if you don't do so, you are being illegal. So that's what civil society, one of the things civil society should be saying to their countries. Brazil today violates the international law when it has agreements that ensure the continuity of the violations of humanitarian law. It gives direct money to the companies that have built the wall illegally. And I'm going to take a time in my presentation to list some of these companies and to tell you how we have been successful in this international, the largest campaign, as I said, in the whole civil society, and giving some of these companies some very deep financial problems. So Brazil is violating the international law, and most of you here are also violating the international law. Besides the legal arguments, I must say, and I agree now with Mr. Kadim, that I don't drive myself only with international law. And I must say, there are 2 other things that drive me to, I expect you to have this argument under consideration. The first is that I am ashamed. I am ashamed that every day when I go to my work, I get into the metro in São Paulo, and it's a metro built by Alstom. Alstom is the company that has built the Jerusalem rail that connects the illegal settlements to Israel. It's illegal. There's nothing to discuss there. It's just illegal. And my country has hired the services of this company, violating directly the Geneva Convention, but also making me feel ashamed that my tax money is paying Israel's violation. My tax money is helping people to be killed, shot, and we don't need to go far. We have our friend here that was shot shooting his movie, and my tax money was part of that, and I'm ashamed of this. And so you all should be. So if the international law doesn't convince you, I hope you don't feel well by being ashamed that your money is part paying this. Also, there is a moral duty. We are all here wanting peace and justice, so let's put that into practice. I would like to mention some of the initiatives that churches have been applied. The Quaker Friends Corporation divested 900,000 in shares of Caterpillar Company. Caterpillar is the company that demolishes illegally the houses in the occupied West Bank. Daily, thousands of houses demolished every year under the scope of Oslo agreements that allow Israel to determine who cannot or can build in Area C. Also, the Presbyterian Church in the U.S. and the United Methodist Church have both called on their members to boycott produce from illegal Israeli settlements. So that, I believe, is a way to put faith and moral convictions in a very concrete way. So I come to you with two arguments to support boycott, divestment, and sanction: the international law and the moral and shame argument. I have here a huge history of the Israeli calls for boycott. They started in 2001, and they have been going on, and now they follow the Palestinian call. And I hope I'll have the chance to talk more about the Israeli boycott initiatives after the questions, maybe. I would now focus myself on the call of 2005, 1 year after the decision of the ICJ on the wall. And this call was issued, as I said, by many Palestinian political parties, unions, associations, coalitions and organizations, academics, all you can imagine, from Palestinian refugees outside historical Palestine, from Palestinians living inside Israel, and from Palestinians living under occupation on the West Bank and Gaza and East Jerusalem. The call is very simple, and please take note of the 3 points that these people asked us. They asked the international community for 3 things. That's all they asked. The first thing, ending its occupation and colonization of Arab lands and dismantling the wall. I believe nobody here disagrees with that. So they asked us to put pressure in Israel and companies that are connected to this to do this one thing. The second thing, recognize the fundamental rights of Arab Palestinians, citizens of Israel, to full equality. Does anyone here believes that Israel should give less rights to Palestinians inside Israel? I don't believe so. So they asked us for the second thing. They asked us for a third thing, to respect, protect, and promote the rights of Palestinian refugees to return to their homes and properties as stipulated in UN Resolution 194. They're just taking the things UN have said, these 3 things, they are stated by international law and by UN resolutions, and they are asking us to fight as civil society with them, not for them, to put pressure in our governments and to hold companies accountable. BDS has now around 9 years, and as I said, is the biggest civil society movement in the world in this matter, and it has accomplished amazing victories. I'm just going to mention a few of them, and maybe after your questions I can mention more. I will start with Veolia. Veolia is the company that gives infrastructure to and services to illegal settlements, including the Jerusalem light rail that I mentioned that connects the settlements. Municipalities across Europe and Australia have decided not to award Veolia contracts, and it's worth $14 billion. Ever the UN has done such thing with such power, $14 million, and that came from civil society in Europe and Australia. And the municipalities, not even the national government, withdraw its contracts, and it worth $14 million. Alstom, the company I mentioned that made my metro in São Paulo, I'm very proud of it. Also partner of Veolia, lost $10 billion contract with the South Haramanian Highway after pressure of civil society. Caterpillar, that I've already mentioned relating to the church initiatives, was removed from the MSCI Ethical Investment Index because it's not ethical to demolish civilian homes, that's pretty obvious, which resulted that the U.S. pension fund, TIAA, removed the Caterpillar company from its social choices funds. G4S, a few blocks from here you can find the G4S building in Ecuador. And in a few moments I'll be talking about how Latin America are connected to this. G4S lost the European Parliament contract after civil society pressure. The European Parliament. They are not doing business with G4S anymore because that would violate international law. Because G4S is providing security for settlements, providing security, and I remember I met Rafael when we were going to this Ofer prison protest, and at Ofer is where one of the prisons where G4S provided the security system that resulted also in the questioning process, and Palestinians arrested there under administrative detention with no judgment or accusation, and G4S is providing all the material needs for that to happen. So G4S violates international law, and if the European Parliament wants to fulfill its obligations with Geneva Convention, it just doesn't do business anymore with G4S. It's simple like that. Elbit, and that's a big issue. Elbit now is all around South America, especially in Brazil. Brazil is the biggest buyer of UAVs, the unmanned air vehicles. Brazil is actually using these drones, or UAVs, if you will, to patrol the sky during the FIFA World Cup. And those drones were bought from Elbit. Those drones are the ones bombing Gaza. Those drones are the ones violating international law. So Brazil is again violating the Geneva Convention, and is again making its citizens ashamed that our money is going to a company that bombs kids in Gaza, to a company that violates international law because it helped to build the wall. And the ICG decisions clearly say you cannot support the wall. So Brazil is supporting the wall. So that's again illegal and immoral. But Elbit is not only in Brazil. Colombia, Ecuador, Argentina, Perú. Sí, hermanos. Y allá hay los movimientos de la sociedad civil que han llamado por boicot a esto.
They put pressure on governments. And that's why when people go back to their countries, they have to work on this. And if they join them for a moral and a legal event to demand that their countries do something.
The water company that have been referred sometimes here in this conference has also been boycotted in many countries. So I could go on, and of course there is also the boycotting from consumers themselves, not only from the government. So we are going to have in Brazil a direct action against SodaStream. SodaStream is a company based in the West Bank, illegally, an Israeli company, and recently it has declared Scarlett Johansson its ambassador, and after that Oxfam withdrew Scarlett Johansson ambassador position because Scarlett Johansson couldn't be ambassador for Oxfam in international law and at the same time be an ambassador for an Israeli company that violates the international law when it settles itself in occupied land. So we are going to this store. It's a very simple thing. Anyone can do that. Any civil society movement can do this. You just go to a store, raise some posters and say, hey, don't buy SodaStream. It's illegal. It's made in illegality. Just say that. Put some stamps. You know, go there, dance, put some music. You know, you can be creative. But hold these people accountable. That's very important. So the companies, they are all around South America, and that's why I'm happy this conference is being held here, because for us it is very important to strengthen the movement here. To conclude, and I'll be open for all your questions, I would like to say the boycott, divestment, and sanction movement is not only regarding divestment of this type of companies, it also regarding cultural movements. Artists are getting engaged in this movement, intellectuals. I mentioned Judith Butler, Ilan Pape, Stephen Hawking, if you want to leave the humanity field. The great physician denied to participate in a conference in Israel while Israel doesn't fulfill its obligations. There's 3 obligations. They are not making anything up. The obligations, the UN and the international youth. So I ask you all, my friends, to keep that in mind. To conclude, I only have a few words on the dangers of normalization. I'm not against people dialoguing. I'm not against people working together for peace. But we shall never forget that there is nothing normal with occupation. There is nothing normal with apartheid. There's nothing normal with colonization and ethnic cleansing. So here in Quito, we can sit in the same table, an Israeli and a Palestinian from the West Bank or Gaza. But there, they cannot do that. And even to come here, the Palestinians that came here, they had, if they were in the West Bank, they had to cross the Jordanian border, being checked by the Israeli military, the Jordanian military, and then they came here through Europe. And there are directly flights from Al to South America for those who live in Israel. So let us not normalize these things. Let us be together talking for justice and peace, but we cannot forget that this is not normal. These people wouldn't be able to meet there even if they want to. It's illegal for Israelis, Jewish Israelis, to cross to the West Bank. And I have many friends, Jewish Israelis, that go every weekend to the West Bank to join demonstrations, and they are doing something illegal. It's also illegal for Israelis to if they want to live in the West Bank, because they can. You can be Jew and live in Palestine, but it's also illegal. So there is nothing normal about these things, and we shall never forget that. So I'm not against coexistence, I'm not against dialogue, but these things can never be used as normalizers tools. Thank you very much.